Today we're going to talk about a bit more of the pharmacology, who was involved, and clones and lookalikes. Oftentimes I have this memory from my life after to where the Creator said to me, he said that he in fact used the old saying, all black people look alike, to his advantage. So oftentimes I find myself wondering, he used them in a way because the Creator, he doesn't necessarily have a body. So it can be anything, and that's why he showed himself to us as Prince. And the psychopharmacology, though, however, was being practiced on a body that was being used like a pincushion. Occult practices, bringing about altars, figuring out what kind of damage could be done to humankind by damaging their Creator. It's all very... Oftentimes I come and smile, and I still will because I have to. It's very painful to recall those things in my memory. But in 2010, when I died, it wasn't just, oh, this girl is meeting Prince, she wants to call him God. It's not like that. That the whole illusion that our world is under, that humankind is under, that we've been under since this spooky electric illusion of time has been created. And in my mind, since I started hearing all these things in 2020, there was some kind of recreation, because though I died in 2010, I didn't remember or hear anything until 2020. So that's why it sounds kind of drifty, and maybe sometimes like I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do. So the fact that our Creator desired to sacrifice himself in such a way that he could bring music as the gift that brought life to our dark, dark world, that included this body. And so when concerts would be done and live shows, like showing in person and stuff like that, from what I understand in the way back past, before 2010, sometimes they would let him borrow his own body, because he had proven through being who he is that he would always come back to this hell place. So it's bigger. It's even bigger than that, because the religious lies that are on the world about the Savior in Christianity being Jesus Christ, as well as any Islamic beliefs, people, saying that they're fighting in the name of their God. Hashem doesn't tell people to fight and kill and rape and those things. So all the religious lies that are on the world are important to understand, that goes along with this dark cover at Paisley Park, because they were and still are attempting to cover and deny our Creator's existence. It's much like the song Face Down, or any of the other lyrics. If you thought that you could put me down and not get a page in my book, you've been bamboozled, hoodwinked, took. Let's see, the other lyrics, the paranormal jacked up situation that you people got into. He told us through the lyrics who he was, what the plans were. You just have to be a soul that was looking for God at the same time to see it. Reading the Bible, it's biblical, lyrical verses. Listen, why do you think the music industry uses hits, needles, one-hit wonders, tracks? Like if you use drugs, you're going to have track marks. You're going to take hits. You're going to use a needle. So all the terminology in the music industry was twisted. Even Motown has NWO in it twice. The Faustian devilish type agreement has to do with the beginning of time, and I don't know, being banished from the earth and having, I don't know, this gift of music to give, and it's why he always sold himself portrayed himself, pardon me, in the movies as a gigolo, because the using of him was like that. He was under contract to make a certain amount of money, or did make a certain amount of money, which was never his. That's why he said someday he'd live in a big white mansion. Someday he'd wear fancy clothes. That's why you always saw pain in his eyes. He was telling the story. So even though it seems weird, I'm determined to come on here and tell it, because just the other day I saw an article unrelated to what I'm saying, but the Kim Jong-un had a propaganda song come out about what a gentle and wonderful leader and father, a faithful father, or some kind of father he called himself. And it made me giggle at first because I thought about the song father figure, but then the fact that he's doing what he's doing to his people is just disgusting. But he has them all singing that he's the faithful father, when really, in fact, the father that we do have, our creator, is being denied his existence. And Paisley Park was where they did it. Paisley Park. I want to be careful what I say, because these things were told to me and shown to me in the afterlife, and I can't ever be accused of coming on here and saying, you know, and people trying to sue me for slander. Can't nobody do that, because it was in the afterlife and continues to be in this life that I can hear from the creator and do my research and my studies. And so in case you missed it, it's been 40 years researching Prince Rogers Nelson since I was 13 and saw Purple Rain. And when I met him in 2010, he told me as a soul that my sole purpose was to pay attention to who he was, so I could bring this message to the world. That's what I'm doing. So I wanted to talk to you about the clones and lookalikes, as well as the multiple Moline landings, so that you could wrap your mind around what I'm saying as truth. Because like I told him in the afterlife, if I can handle it, they can handle it. People appreciate the truth. So, you know, dig up, y'all. The very first page of the Beautiful Ones book, Dan Piepenbring writes that Prince had never called his cell phone before. They had allegedly been in tech. Dan and the one Prince had been in contact since 2014, 2015, right around the same time Judith Hill claims to have met Prince. Who I believe this Prince was Marone Bakure. I've explained the lookalikes and clones before. Natalia Phillips, the songwriter, she actually had print work done for the Piano and a Microphone tour, and she's the one that 70% of the phone calls to California from Paisley Park were made between March 23rd of 2016 and 4/21. So 70% of those calls were going to her. I believe she was playing lookalike Marone Bakure, was living at the hotel, and of course playing lookalike, and that's why the afro and the big glasses and everything like that. But super relevant is that Dan Piepenbring writes many, many things in his book that can be taken into the investigation. And the very first thing that he says is on the first page, when he says that Prince had never called his cell phone before. They've been doing business for a year and a half, but this person never called their cell phone. But after the Moline landing, when I believe somebody died, the first phone call was to the cell. So let's take a look at some evidence. We'll keep going. Thank you for being here. On the very first page, Dan writes that Prince had never called his cell phone before. 4 days before he died, that night his phone lit up with a 952 area code, but he had never called his cell phone before. Before I actually get started, before, after. This is not the same person. This is not the same person. Not the same. Not the same. This is Marone Bakure. This is Julia Ramadan as Prince. The JR email. Chris Gaither says that Prince didn't use that email anymore. This is Natalia Phillips. Her modeling bio says that she was in Prince's A Million Days video, that she did print work for the Piano and a Microphone tour. Could have even been Judith. She was there when Michael Jackson died. She was about to perform in his This Is It concert. And in the media, she tries to sell herself as Prince's girlfriend.
If Prince was seeing anyone, like Judith Hill or anybody, was that any kind of girlfriend or just a singer? Or?
No, she's an artist under the label.
Right.
Judith was an artist under the label. I mean, they weren't dating. He wasn't seeing anybody, you know.
Okay.
He's friends, you know, with a lot of women and men.
The double identity extends into the Moline paperwork as well. Here above me, you can see this paperwork says that the IV that they put in was on the left side wrist. Left IV site wrist. Here on this other paperwork, it's the right forearm. Now, I introduced these different identities to you on the identity video. So if you want to get in depth in that, go check that out. There's at least, I think, 3 or 4 different identities for Prince. So you never know which lookalike or clone that we're talking about. The media story, the investigation runs from April 7th to April 21st, but technically they take it back to June of 2011, which means that they were investigating the time after I met the creator and the life after, and he told me about the breakdown on his life and his identity, and that's when they all started working double time performing the $1 Million Show. I think Taika is involved somehow as well, maybe as the jealous sister that wanted to take over the body. And again, it's why the song Bambi, because if you listen to the rhetoric and the media lies, they'll say that A, Prince didn't have a will, and B, you couldn't get anything done around Paisley Park because he was just surrounded by these young women and models. But the fact that there was young women and models were working there is because it was for the other Prince, either Marone, Natalia Phillips, somebody that was friends with the girl from the Pussycat Dolls and all kinds of females if you look at their email history. That is not Prince Rogers Nelson, and though he enabled and uplifted women throughout his career, this is not the same person that we're talking about. So my point is this: when those people, to the best of my understanding, would perform as Prince in some kind of way, they would do a seance-y type transference of energy, and that's why Judith says on the plane or in the hospital that Kirk said, we have to stop doing this to Prince. So there's all kinds of pharmacology. The drugs are to put people under different states of mind, take away stage fright, all the drugs that the media talks about being planted around Paisley Park. And this, they say found, I say planted. They were meant to be found to expose this secret. The lookalikes and the doubles in Moline, I think, again, if you can understand that Judith Hill goes on to say that there were 2 concerts that night. The first one started around 7:30 and the second one at 10:30. You have to know that with pilot Betchholt saying his plane left at 10:30, that we're talking about 2 different landings. So there's things like, again, the pilot says they left at 10:30. Judith says the second concert started at 10:30. The other pilot, Gallus, says that his plane left at 11:51, and then they landed in Moline about 1:26. But they were covering, one of the landings took place in less than 10 minutes. They were flying at, I believe, 45,000 feet. And the other plane, Judith said it took forever for them to land. And I read somewhere that they had to circle for like 20 minutes before they could land. So clearly we're talking about different plane landings. Judith says that the Prince that she was with literally died on the plane. She said his head did this, this, and this, and then he was dead. They shook him. There was no response. There's differing testimonies about Nancy Fisher, the stewardess, getting people off the plane. She called them passengers. Getting the passengers off the plane, because everything in the investigation is always real generic because they think that nobody could have the inside scoop or care as much as I do, but they were wrong. So with those landings, you also have the EMT testimony. One of the EMTs said that the stairs were already down when they got there, and a big black dude said, I'm bringing him down. It was carrying Prince down like a baby. The other testimony from Judith says that these people that she thought were EMTs, that they looked like EMTs, got on the plane, and they had to move the table out of the way and do this and do that. And she thought they were taking forever. And then eventually each person just grabbed a leg and an arm and then carried him off the plane, which I thought was super weird, until you think about what I'm saying. Is the body that they were doing these psychopharmacological seances and transferences with enough to have the media believe that Prince posted on the 15th, just the day after he died, "I am transformed"?
This is a little secret. This is our little secret. Untarnished memory in a pale blue spotlight. Oh, let me hear you scream. You're ready for one night alone with me.
Here, Dr. Kornfeld is being interviewed, and Patrick Murphy, the detective, says he understands why he would try to get him somewhere a little more private. Sometimes people try to intervene, and that is one of the questions I would have is, did someone try to intervene? If they discovered him and things were going bad and someone tried to intervene by giving him something, Andrew said, no, I wouldn't try to intervene. I would either call my father or I would call 911. I did call 911. So the media investigation is always referring to him or he. It's the nameless one. It's face down. It's my crooked glasses. I talked about the lyrics in part 1 or 2 where he said how they learned hypnosis, how they keep me under for so long. The body, which is also referred to in the investigation, they call it the body. See, when I talk about it, I forget what I'm going to say. The body, unfortunately, like I said earlier, it was being used like a pincushion, and then in other ways, I remember vaguely, it's like the song lyrics, have you ever had a feeling that someone's wanting to chop you up into itty bitty pieces? And that's why when Judith said someone just grabbed an arm and a leg in the plane, I mean, that fits too. So there's a lot of weird, dark stuff going on, you guys, and all I can say is I went through this lifetime knowing that it wasn't what the politics and the religion exposed itself to be. I knew there was something much more sinister and much more dark. I could feel it. I could hear it. Even as a child, it just wasn't until I was an adult and my soul purpose and life after death memories were told to me, and that is to be this messenger. But in the interest of keeping the video short, I'm going to say that it wasn't just what we know to be Prince having lookalikes to use his ultimate power. It was others too. It's like, for instance, during the BET Awards, he says to Jamie Foxx, and I'll show you the video, you didn't just play Ray Charles, you were Ray.
Then there were those amazing performances. Mr. Jamie Foxx. You didn't just portray Ray Charles, you were Ray Charles.
See how uncomfortable he got? And when he said that, I remembered that I was shown in the afterlife that somehow, some way through these transferences and occultic ceremonies, one night alone with me, as you heard not too long ago, he's forced through torture and different methods to bring forth altars, and even in fact told me that I was, because he's the creator, he creates all of our souls and our beings, that even though he was in that state of being, that it doesn't matter where he is, he's still creating all the time, everywhere. And that I was like one of the altars or something that he could use, because when we meditate, there's that same transference of energy, only I don't run to a bunch of drugs and psychopharmacology to deal with it. I hear hopefully in the future, as more truths get told about who he is and come out about the darkness of the media, or excuse me, the darkness of the music industry and what they did with it. The media is starting to put little bits about how Prince floated, how he float into a room and disappear after, or you got Jada Pinkett out there talking about with her bald, vampiric looking self that Prince was kind of witchy. So they're trying to formulate and instigate a personality for him, which is why he was sold to be so private, so that they could sell his life story after the fact. And that is part of the religious breakdown that I wanted to get back to ultimately, because it really has to do with the build up and breakdown of not only Prince but of America, our creator known as Prince and of America, which is why he named his son Amir. It's these handlers and these altars. It's why all the pseudonym names were used. It was he sold it to the others as if he was participating to get compliance, if you will, and because they don't have a lot going on upstairs. They thought that in the end, the gatekeepers, the thieves in the temple, they thought that they had like this mind frame that God forbid that God is dead, and that they were going to be able to run their white supremacy KKK game all over the world, present this media music industry as a failing one, and point the finger at the one who said, I'm your Messiah and you're the reason why. Like he had some kind of God complex or something.
I try only to speak when spoken to. And with your continued love and support, I can speak a little bit more.
For those who know the number and don't call, fuck all y'all.